remember that moment that my first spiritual gift came online. And from that moment, I went from just my whole world changed in a matter of one split second. The moment that I became a psychic empath, the moment that the first gift, which is called clairsentient, which all empaths are, came online. And I'm going to share that with y'all today. So let's get into the story time. Grab yourself some water and let's get into it. So, ooh, child, I was in my college, not dorm, I had an apartment in college my junior year, junior or senior year. I was 21. I was 21 years old. I think it was senior year. Anyway, yeah, so I was in my bedroom. I was in my bed, and I remember something higher than myself calling me to watch a few videos, and it was just a few minutes of each. And I just remember that it was Erykah Badu, it was Lauryn Hill, and it was Oprah. And I don't know, it just was something was pulling me to watch them. And then I stopped the video and paused for a moment. And mind you, it was like kind of dimly lit in my bedroom. And then I heard this sound, which was very loud. And it was like a computer powering on. It was like, wee. And then I was like, because I like felt this presence, and it was so big. It felt like something really big was in my room, like a person or a big person. And I didn't see anybody. And so then a couple seconds later, I realized that it was my own soul. And from that moment, not only did I feel my soul, but I also felt everyone else's. That was the beginning. I went from being someone who partied every weekend and was always out socializing and in crowds and whatnot, to being someone who, no matter how you are presenting, no matter how you're showing up, I can feel in my own body how the people around me are truly feeling. So in the beginning, it was pretty rough because I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand what was happening. And I remember going to class, and I would be sitting, when I woke up in the morning, I felt fine, you know, but I would go to class and maybe sit next to somebody, and then my heart would just start hurting really bad, you know? And then I'd be like, are you okay? To the person that I felt it coming from, and they would just start crying. And then they would just start telling me a whole bunch of stuff. And it just happened all the time. And it wasn't until the person like opened up or cried or something that I would feel that pressure leave my body. So that went on for a while. I graduated undergrad, and then the year after that, I did a gap year between undergrad and grad school, where I did a program called City Year, a AmeriCorps program, teaching kids math, reading, social, emotional learning, and African dance. And so I went, during that program, we got some free therapy. So I was like, okay, cool. Something else was happening. I was having dreams that would tell me, like, that would happen the next day or happen a couple days later, or, you know, the dreams would tell me how certain people are feeling, or if something was going on with somebody, and I would just, you know, be like, okay, what's happening here? So I remember going to therapy and talking to my therapist about life and the things that was happening, and she would just be staring at me like in fascination like this, and I'm just like, okay. And she just kept saying, Mia, I think you're psychic. If you don't get control over it, it's going to keep taking control over you. And I remember thinking to myself, what? Like, I don't know. I just was kind of ignoring it. And she literally said it 6 sessions in a row. And then by that 6th session, I was like, okay. She was like, I know someone who's an astrologer if you want me to connect you with them. And this was before I Before this, I, grew up going to church. I grew up going to the Kingdom Hall. I grew up going to the mosque. I've always collected rocks because I love rocks. So now it's crystals, but I also still collect rocks too. And I've always felt very connected to nature, right? But being psychic and all that, like, I never really thought about stuff like that, but I just kept having these experiences, and I went to therapy, and my therapist just kept saying it over and over again, because basically I was suffering because I was experiencing all this stuff and I didn't know what was going on. So it was like acceptance was that key right there. And so then I was like, okay, I remember my walk. I was going to therapy in Center City, Philadelphia. And I remember my walk down the street. It was like Fifth and Chestnut or something like that, like in Old City. And I remember seeing like sparkles on the ground. This was just the image that I remember. And I remember thinking to myself, maybe I am psychic. I don't know. So I just started doing research to type in my symptoms and what was happening. And the word empath came up. And when I saw and read what the word empath meant, I was like, wow. Like, it was like the first time I felt seen. Like, I've been going through all this. And mind you, there were so many incidents in between that first night that I told y'all about and then me going to therapy that I would feel other people's emotions, and it would be confusing. And then I would say something to them, and then they would just start crying, and then they would just start telling me all this stuff. And then it got to the point where it was like when I would be in crowds, it would feel extremely overwhelming sometimes, because I kept feeling everybody's emotions all the time. It was to the point where when I was in crowds, I would want to kind of be on the outskirts. I wanted to be away from people more, smaller crowds got better, was better for me. It was just a lot of things. Like when you're an empath and you don't really know how to shield your energy, it was like energetic overwhelm sometimes. And I wasn't like, having like, freak out attacks or anything like that. I just wasn't oh my God.